Hello, my name is Gabriel. I'm a martial artist, a martial arts instructor, and a stuntman in the film industry. Today I want to talk about my martial arts journey. I want to talk about where it all began. I want to sort of break down each section of my life and my journey within the context of martial arts so people can get a better idea of how I came to live this lifestyle and make martial arts my career. But also, if people can relate to my story, maybe I have something to say that might contribute to somebody else's life and might provide some insight for people. To talk about the beginning of my journey, I actually need to talk about my father. My father's name is Luis Ruan, and he was born in National City in San Diego. The rougher part of town, there's a lot of gangs. But from the age of 12, my dad started training in martial arts. He started training in karate. The style he trained in was Wadakai karate, and he learned from Sensei Murphy and Sensei Terry Crook, as well as Chicken Gabriel in San Diego. And these are very legitimate martial artists and martial arts masters. He was training it when people were sparring full contact. You learned self-defense, you learned how to fight. He really fell in love with martial arts during that time, and also it kept him out of trouble. He trained till he was about 20 years old in karate. He was also a competitive runner, so he would mix in his training with running. So he would run, even getting ready for his brown belt test. He had to do a kumite, a 10-man kumite, so it's one guy right after the other. My dad had to train for that. And growing up, my dad used to talk to me about how much that brown belt testing experience meant for him. The running, the training every day, reviewing kata. My dad loved martial arts. He loved martial arts movies. He grew up also watching Bruce Lee movies. My dad used to show me movies like Enter the Dragon. His favorite line was when Jim Kelly told Han,
"Man, you come right out of a comic book."
He still quotes it to this day, Just as a little kid, my dad instilled a lot of martial arts within us. He used to get me and my brother, and he would teach us how to block and punch and kick. Those are really fun times together. It was really great family bonding. He always wanted us to get into martial arts, and by us, I mean me and my brother. But, we were very involved in sports. We played basketball, football, baseball, especially baseball. Me and my brother were obsessed with baseball. I didn't really start training martial arts until I was 10 years old. When I was maybe about 5 or 6, I briefly did Okinawan karate under Sensei Benavides. My brother trained there too. I was too young to really remember anything, but I just remember that I really enjoyed the training. As a kid, I was completely consumed by cartoons, anime. I loved shonen anime, martial arts anime that had tournament arcs. I was a Toonami kid. I grew up in that generation where Toonami had all these anime that were dubbed into English. So I grew up on Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball especially. That series had a big influence on me. So I would watch those obsessively on Toonami. You learn a lot actually about that warrior spirit training within martial arts, that you kind of have to keep that mentality throughout your training if you want to stay hard, stay tough, stay mentally strong. So I loved watching those shows, and I also was really into Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but also on Cartoon Network with just American TV shows. I loved watching Jackie Chan Adventures, and I loved watching shows like Shaolin Showdown. There was even another one called Shuriken School that I watched a lot. So I always loved martial arts, cartoons, and anime, and all of that. The series that really inspired me to get into martial arts in the first place was Avatar: The Last Airbender. And that show, it came out in 2005. I started martial arts in 2006. So there's a very short span of time between being exposed to that show and taking martial arts lessons. That show to this day probably is the most impactful series on my life. And I've consumed a lot of media. I work in film, you know, I've studied a lot of great films and great television series, but Avatar had an incredible impact on my life. You know, the teachings that it had, it got me into martial arts. It was really incredible. And it was a way for me, my brother, and my dad to bond. You know, my dad really loved the show as well. And it was one of the first cartoons that were out there that really had a good portrayal of culture, of different cultures, and of martial arts. There's a particular scene in, I believe, the second episode. Zuko had Aang in his bunker. Aang was trying to escape. Zuko kind of confronted him and tried to catch him. Aang was doing that Bagua type circle walking on Zuko's back, and Zuko couldn't catch him. I thought that was the coolest thing, that Aang knew this style that no one else knew. He stood out for being different in what I thought was a really cool way. So it kind of stuck with me. You know, at 10 years old watching that, I wanted to stand out for being different, but in a very positive and unique way. And I felt that martial arts would do that. And that was kind of the catalyst for me wanting to do it.